Hi, and welcome to the Sibme Coach Replay Show. I'm Cory, your host and Director of Professional Learning here at Sibme. This show is focused on instructional coaching and the power that video brings to this work. Each episode, we're going to be sitting down with one of Sibme's virtual coaches to talk a little bit about what this work can look like with video, break down some footage, talk about some interesting coaching topics. So this week, I'm excited to bring you Melody Deemer, one of our elite virtual coaches here in the Sibme coaching team. Melody, in addition to being a Sibme virtual coach, is also a fifth grade teacher. And she's spent time in her career as a reading specialist, writing curriculum, providing professional development for teachers, and of course, coaching. Welcome, Melody.
Thank you so much, Cory. I'm really excited to be here, and I think we have a really interesting clip to look at today.
We do, and I think it's super timely for this time of year as well, because it's about classroom management, and specifically how we can use the start of our class to have a really strong start into our instruction, having high behavioral and academic expectations and the importance of that. So let's kick this off, Melody. Talk to me about what we mean when we talk about having a strong start and high expectations.
So having a strong start means that you have ahead of time prepared your room, prepared the lesson, set things up so that as soon as the kids enter the room or as soon as the lesson is supposed to start, everyone can get right to work. And that's really important because it communicates to students that you're really serious, that this is a place where learning and hard work is important. And it also makes use of every precious minute of time that we have as teachers. And then having high expectations is really a complicated idea to me. Sometimes I run into teachers who say, oh, I have high expectations for my class, as though it's a kind of an all or nothing thing or a one and done sort of thing. And I think that we can have high expectations one day and then the next day not so much, or high expectations in math and maybe not so much in writing or that kind of thing. It's something that we have to keep a reflective eye on, I would say, so that we are kind of constantly monitoring ourselves and making sure that we're lifting the level of those expectations. And as we'll see in this video, it means that in everything you say and everything you do and in the way that you act and comport yourself, that you're communicating to students that you believe that they can learn and produce work at very high levels.
Yeah, and that's important, right? We're talking about using every ounce of instructional time that we can to its fullest. And I think you're right. What I love about what you said about those high expectations is not just kind of a one and done and, oh yeah, I have high expectations, but it makes me think of a work that I've done with explicit instruction and Anita Archer, and she says, you know, what you expect is what you get. But the caveat of that is you have to state those expectations. You've got to be clear about them, teach them, you have to reinforce them constantly. So we're definitely going to see a little bit of that in play today here with this video. So let's go ahead and jump in. What we've got here is a video of a fifth grade classroom teacher who's been a member of our Sibme virtual coaching cohort. And talk to me, Melody, about what else are we going to be looking for? What are we looking for in this video?
Well, the thing that makes this video so interesting is that she gets off to such a wonderful start. And we'll see that in the first little segment here. And then she kind of becomes her own worst enemy and really sort of tears down that initial really excellent work that she did. So if we take a look at that first segment, we can see where she really starts strong.
Yeah, so let's watch the first bit of this.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes for your warm-up. When you're done, you can go ahead and just turn your paper over.
All right. So talk to me, Melody.
So I thought that was great. You know, talk about a strong start. She gave really clear, very succinct directions. The kids know what to do. They know what to do when they're finished, and they know how long they have to do it. So I would give both that teacher and those students a round of applause right there.
I love it. Okay, so let's keep watching then.
And remember all the things we talked about yesterday. What I want to see during the warm-ups: 0-inch voices, eyes on your paper, pencils moving, completing the warm-up, everybody in their assigned seats, no request for the restroom or the nurse. Remember to put your name on your paper, and you have 5 minutes. No request to sharpen pencils.
All right, so she states some expectations. She kind of clarifies a little bit here.
So here's where I think she starts to fall down a little bit. She started so strongly, and she's circulating around the room, which is excellent. It's communicating to the students that she's there, she's aware, she knows what's going on. And then she starts to interrupt the students' thinking by going over the routines that she clearly has already taught them. You can tell because it's on video, you can see that the kids are engaged, they're bent over their work, they seem to be working hard, but in spite of that, she's interrupting their thinking by going over these behavioral expectations that she could just as well at this point have posted on the wall someplace and have kind of stopped talking and let them think and work. And by doing that, the problem with that is that she is sort of unconsciously, I'm sure, communicating to the students that she doesn't believe that they can work for even 5 minutes without following the expectations that she's taught. So that's an example of what we mean by having lower expectations really very subtly for what the students are doing there.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. And it reminds me of when I was in the classroom, years ago. I taught special education, and one of the first things I saw when I started using video was I was really bad at overscaffolding. I believed in my students 100%, but I did a lot of the work for them just
exactly.
Probably because I was a newer teacher and the population I was working with. But there's a very distinct moment where I remember we were doing silent sustained reading, and I was going through my list of comprehension checklists, right, of remember as you're reading, look at this, look at that, don't forget, ask yourself. And finally, one of my 7th graders said, "Miss Camp, can silent pertain to you as well?" And I was like, oh.
Oh, ouch.
It was a really good, our students are our best teachers, but
right.
I loved that he said that. First of all, he used the word pertain, which was a word we had been working on. But secondly, he called me on it, and there was no way they were going to be able to focus on their reading and their comprehension because I was giving them all the reminders.
Right, right.
I really had to learn to mind the silence. It's something I still work on. But yeah, it does kind of.
Yeah, me too.
yeah, it speaks a little bit to the I don't quite trust you yet, right? I think
right.
Younger kids who just say, "Mom, let me do it. I know how to do it," and I'm going, "Oops."
Exactly.
So I think that's just the teacher in us. But I love that this is something that we can be more aware of as we set those expectations here at the beginning of the year. But then at what point do we kind of release a little bit of that guidance and let them just do it, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. So that's, as I said, high expectations. It's a pretty complicated idea, something complex, something that can be very subtle like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, it's a great reminder for the start of the school year to kind of think through that and think about how do I establish and teach my students these routines and procedures and teach them to be those independent learners or interdependent learners, and really kind of let them their critical thinking skills to get through some tasks. So then what's the next step with this teacher, either for the teacher for their own video, or as you're coaching using video with this teacher? You know, in our sample, you had some great reflective questions for the teacher to kind of think a little bit about, and some good reinforcement in there. So what's the next video focus going to be? What's something else we might ask them to do?
Well, you know, I think it would be a real honor to work with this teacher, because clearly she has worked on teaching expectations. She has really tried to set her classroom up in such a way that the kids start right away on the warm-up. So I think just pointing out to her places where she's kind of over supporting, I just think that she would make some changes immediately, and it would be really interesting to see a second video of a warm-up where she gives the directions, the written directions are clear, and she just circulates but doesn't talk and interrupt. And then I'd also like to see that debriefing she does after that second video, to really see that the students were able to do that work, or if they weren't, you know, then she can assess and know where to go next.
Yeah, I love it. Those are some great follow-up ideas. Well, thanks for looking at this video with us and leading us through some guided noticing, Melody. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to me too. That was a really interesting video, and I appreciate talking with you about it.
Awesome. So we'll see Melody again. Tune in next week for another episode of the Sibme Coach